City Council meeting 9:30 a.m. Tuesday, June 18th, 2019, City Hall Complex. Call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Madam Clerk, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Number 3, orders, consideration possible action on order 2019-06-029. We have a motion.
So move, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead,
I would
Councilman.
like to make sure I know exactly what I'm voting on. I would like to have a presentation made on this.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. My name is Janet Barrales, Finance Director, and I'm here to present the final outcome of our tentative budget for fiscal year 2019-2020. So as you may know, every year we are required by the law to propose a balanced budget, and the purpose of our budget is to meet the needs of our citizens and also to effectively manage the money so that we are covering all the costs that are involved with maintaining our city. So the exercise every year is to look at our data and provide a recommendation as to how much we anticipate we will collect in revenues. Again, this is an estimation based on previous year's activity and to help determine the revenues. So for this year, when we look at our revenues for our operations, you can see that our biggest fund is general fund, which is the fund that supports our public safety, our parks and recreation, our library, administration, finance, cemetery, engineering, court, and all those revenues are used to support those activities. The other funds that we have that are our major operating funds is our HERF, which is our Highway User Revenue Fund. That is specifically to help maintain our streets. The other 3 is our sewer, water, and sanitation. That is the money that is used to maintain our infrastructure to meet those needs. And then the final one is our housing authority. So here's looking at our main funding sources. We have our sales tax revenue, state shared revenue, license, permits, court fines, and then fees for services provided, which would be like our ambulance fees, and then any additional funding. And mainly that is some funding that we receive by the school to help pay for the school resource officers. So that is 71% of our total revenues. The other is the utility user fees, which represents 26%, and then the final is housing, which represents 3%, for a total of $42,370,891. In addition, the city does receive other fundings to help meet the operations of the departments. These are mainly grants and some state allocated money. We have the Stone Garden, the Governor's Office of Highway and Safety, Municipal Courts, Community Development Block Grant, some grant money for the fire, development fees, Justice, Department of Justice for bulletproof vests, seizure money, some grant money for the library, and then our rainy day fund, which is we create this budget line item just in case throughout the year something unexpected is awarded. We can use that to help incorporate it into our budget. And basically, it's anything unforeseen. So then the next task is to develop our expenditures for the year. This is done through working with the directors, working with mayor and council, city administrators, to help determine that we will have enough resources to cover the operations of the department. when we look at the breakdown of these expenditures, you'll see that payroll is our highest expense, and then from there we have our professional services, contractual services, supplies, other operating, debt, and then interfund transfers, which is mainly the internal departments, internal services department, our capital, and then our fund balance. So when you look at this slide, you'll see that this year we don't have any fund balance because we've designated a majority of a lot of capital projects that we're going to work on this year.
Mayor, may I please?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to call out here, Ms. Pera, if you go back to the previous slide on the payroll of our entire budget, would it be correct to state that the payroll consumes 49% of our operating budget?
Actually, it comes out to a little bit more, probably like 70%.
70? Okay, I was looking at the breakdown that you had here for the payroll here. You have it down at 49% on the graph. On page 9. Is that, am I wrong or?
No,
That's the graph. So it is 49%. So we only have, when we work on our budget, Mayor, 49% of the revenue is already locked in. So when people ask, how come we're short? Because we only have 51% to run the city with everything else and all the requests, and that's where we have a shortfall. Because people don't understand, 49% is locked in. We work for 4 days, but we only had 51% of the revenues to deal with. That's all we had to deal with. And that's where we get into this position because we don't have the revenues and requests for improvements from each department comes in way beyond that, and that's where we have to cut. Not that we're in deficit spending. We're not in deficit spending. It's just we only have 51%. The requests are higher than that, and that's where we have to cut.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So after going through this exercise, our budget is balanced for all the funds, but it was, I have to admit, it was a challenge. So just to give a recap, excuse me, of what changed in the budget for this year and what stayed the same. So the state shared revenues increased by 6%. The parentheses is not that it was less. It increased by $398,000 for next year. Our increase in the health insurance premiums is 8%. So the single coverage is going from 422 to 456, and the employee with family coverage is going from 1,080 to 1,167. The recommendation that was given to the trust was as low as 8% and up to 13%. We chose to chose the 8% because we felt that we would be in an okay financial position if we went with that. The next change is that in September of 2019, we'll see the final increase for the water, sewer, and sanitation rates. And we continue to see a reduction in the retiree insurance premiums as they phase out, go on to Medicare, and the city is no longer required to subsidize the employee premium or the retiree premium. We don't anticipate any increase in the workers' comp and the building, property, and liability insurance. And the final increase that we will see next year is for our pension. So for the Arizona State Retirement, which is the majority of the employees, it's going to go up 0.31% from 1180 to 1211. For public safety, fire, and police, police is going from 50.19% to 51.69%, which is an increase of 1.5. And fire is going to go from 58.96 to 61.21 for an increase of 2.25%. So for the most part, the operating budgets were balanced except for general fund. After meeting with the departments and mayor and council, we were at a deficit of $875,000, or a difference. And what that means is that we had more expenditures than revenues to cover all the needs. So the only way we could freeze the only way we could balance the budget is by freezing 11 vacant positions in 4 departments, which represented a savings of $871,000. And if you look on page 21, you can see the positions that were frozen. And so there's one in the administration department, there's one in the finance department, there's
21.
seven in police and 2 in fire. Page 21.
Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Perales, a lot of these revenues, shared revenues that we get from the state of Arizona, we get them, but they're based on population.
That's correct.
So, Mayor, that's one of the things that we have to pay attention to on this census that's coming. Because this same time next year, this census doesn't go, or if it's not done correctly, especially with the citizenship question that my friend here is promoting, we could be in a lot of trouble financially. It could be so much that we could get into next year into deficit spending. Okay. The other question that I have that
Marcy may have to leave the country is the question now.
the other question that I have on these 3 police officers that, which is number 6, 7, and 8, are these 3 police officers that were budgeted for last year that are frozen now because they weren't filled?
Yes.
Okay, what about we agreed at last year's budget because of what was happening with the public safety tax, that this year we would add 3 police officers, we made a commitment, and next year we would add 3 police officers because our previous city manager went and trimmed down all of that to balance his budget, but the people said that you could not lower it from when this was passed in the year 2000, and it fell below that revenue. So there should be an additional 3 police officers on this. I don't want to lose those positions. Now, are they going to be frozen? Yes. But they should, those 3 additional police officers should be listed here, even if they're frozen, because if we don't do it now, they're going to dissipate and they're never going to come back. So, Mayor, on this one here, I will ask that 3 additional police officers be added and that they be included in that they're frozen, but I want to make sure that when we decide to unfreeze them, that the positions are there and the police chief can fill those positions.
Where's the chief at? Chief, please come to the podium. Chief, you have 5 positions you haven't been able to fill.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And then there was 3 more officers added to that. Was that to a total of 8?
There was supposed to be 3 more officers added to that one. Yes, sir.
So basically, if you couldn't fill the positions in 1 year, what we're doing, it's all right, because if things get better, we can amend it and bring it back, like Councilman Barona says.
Absolutely. The problem we've been having is that we open positions and we lose 2 or 3 through attrition.
Yes.
Through retirement, actually. And then we have to fill, so we're back to 50, and it's kind of hard to get over that 50 hump, but
So
yes.
we're doing okay then?
Yes, sir. Right
Okay.
now, so far.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councilman. Go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Councilman Barona, so you just want to see the 3 officers that are there, plus 3 more. So you want to see 6 officers there.
Well, technically, there's 1, 2, 3, there's 4 police officer positions there that are frozen, that haven't been filled. So the
Right.
police officer, the police lieutenant, the police corporal detective, and those other officers. Those are for this year's budget, correct?
Yeah, this year
And
they
for
are
the-
budgeted and
We made an
funded.
agreement last year because
Right.
of what happened with the public, that we would fund 3 officers this year and 3 officers for the next. I just want to make sure that they are placed here.
Just listed there.
An
Yes.
additional 3 beyond this, even though they're frozen, but they should be listed there.
We're gonna do the same
Thank you,
with those
Mayor.
firefighter positions?
You have
They're
3
frozen.
firefighters here.
There's 2 fire, they're
Frozen, are we
frozen.
gonna
Yeah, they're frozen.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, frozen means that
Yes, I
they're
know
not
what-
gone.
Yes.
They
they're not
didn't go
gone.
away, they're just frozen on the budget.
Right.
It can be, if things get better
Yes.
economically and we see a better revenue in the city, then by amending it, we can bring something back.
Yeah, unfortunately, back in 2010, when we were trying to deal with the balanced budget, this is probably the approach we should have taken, is left them in the departments funded and then done like a negative vacancy savings to offset it. That way we wouldn't have lost track of how many positions were in the department. It's just what we're doing this year. If you look at the payroll schedule for police and fire, those positions will be listed, but then there is a note saying that they cannot be filled unless they're approved by mayor and council.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Go ahead, continue with you.
And so also in the budget, we've identified several capital projects and equipment that is needed. And we have determined that either these items will be paid through contingency, reserves, or by incurring debt. I know Parks has a few projects that they're going to tackle, and then we have significant projects in water and sewer that need to be addressed. And so depending on what method is the best one to address these needs and get them funded. So what's next in our budget? Today is hopefully the tentative budget will be approved as presented, and then we'll advertise the state schedules for 2 consecutive weeks as required by law. And then on July 17th, a public hearing will be held where that will give any citizens the opportunity to come and speak. And then the last thing would be to approve the final budget.
When is the final budget to be approved?
17th of July.
I'm going to be leaving out of town that day, or the day before.
Would you be able to call in?
Well, I'll have to call in there, but it depends on what time, because I got
I
to make
think
sure.
we set it for 3:30.
We could, yeah, well, we can change the time, because that, that's the time that we have to keep, so,
Right.
Mhm. Well, I can call in.
July
Most of them.
17th, that's
yes.
That's when your games start.
Unless we could amend
You're gonna
the
have to call
motion,
too.
Mr. Massey? The motion could be amended to change the time?
Well, we need to, certainly we can do that right now, but we need to fix it right now so we can publish it
Would you please?
in the newspaper. So can we have that discussion now? If 3:30 on the 17th doesn't work, we need to come up with a specific time so that we can give staff
Can we do it on the
direction.
16th?
Can the 16th, will it work? Will it keep us within the 2 weeks?
Yes.
It will?
Mm-hmm. Or you just need to amend the motion to reflect that you would like to have it on the 16th instead of the 17th.
Is that okay with you, Mr. Massey?
Yes, but is that,
Yeah.
Mr. Massey,
Sir?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I make a motion to amend the main motion to change the date of the final budget hearing from July 17th to July 16th.
Is you okay?
Instead of on a Wednesday, it'll be on a Tuesday?
Right.
Yes.
And the time, please?
The same.
It's only gonna be one item, so
Is it 3:30?
3:30 fine, or
That
morning?
3:30 is fine. 3:30 is perfect.
3:30?
Either day.
Yeah, that's okay that day, because I don't. leave till
3:30?
7.
Right. Then we'll
Okay.
need a vote on
Okay.
the motion.
Okay. Yes, go ahead. First is,
Mr. Maldonado,
Maldonado,
Councilman
second.
Maldonado, second.
okay, Madam Clerk? Yes? Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? The ayes have it, thank you very much.
Any
Thank you, Mr.
questions?
Massey.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
you didn't highlight here, we spent time talking about the union contracts.
Yes.
So what was the outcome of the union contracts?
Oh,
What are we going to do?
okay, on the union contracts, we're gonna probably, hopefully, we'll have the contracts up for the council meeting on the 3rd of July, a regular council meeting. And I think staff is gonna discuss something with all 3 unions about that. But basically, financially, I don't see any difference in the finances. It's just the way some things have to be presented. to the members of the council, and it's gonna be up to staff, but, there won't be any changes on
Mr.
it. Go ahead.
Mrs. Perales. When you said that there were increases in the state retirement and the police retirement, I noticed that you didn't mention anything about the increases in the health insurance.
I believe I did.
Did you?
Yes,
Can
I
you go
did.
back there?
There was in the
8%.
8%? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
8%.
Let's cover that. I just want to make, is that increase in health insurance premium at 8%, is that an accurate figure? 8%? Is that actually the increase in the premiums, 8%?
That'll be the increase in the premiums.
No. Is that the actual increase that the city of Nogales is going to be paying, or even if it includes being subsidized? Is it 8% or is it 13%?
The recommendation given to the trust was from 8% to 13%, and the trust chose 8% increase on the premium.
Okay, so the other 5% increase, who's going to pay for that?
We're not, so the way the exercise for this, Councilman Barona, is that we look at what the current premium is,
Uh-huh.
and we increase it to, take the calculation of 8%. So if you look at the single coverage, it's currently $422, and if you times it by 8%, our new premium will be $456, and the same for
Okay.
the family coverage.
All right. Is the EBT board taking any money out of their savings to supplement the health insurance premiums increase of the 5%?
There is a potential impact to the reserves the EBT has on the books for, we have I think a 9-month reserve. Yeah, we currently have a 9-month reserve on our books. So it could potentially impact us to 8 months.
Okay, so then the statement is accurate then that it is going to be a 13% increase in the health insurance premiums, that the EBT board is supplementing the additional 5% to keep the premiums for the individual employees down to a reasonable amount of the increase. Is that a fair statement to make?
Yes, it is.
Mayor and Council, I just want you to know that I don't quite agree with this. And let me tell you why. We are self-funded, and in my opinion, we're headed to a potential financial crisis there. If we keep telling the employees we're going to keep your premiums down, but at the same time we're dipping into our savings, which potentially is 9 months. In my opinion, this started when I was mayor way back when you're self-funded. Nogales Unified School District had an increase of -2%, but our pool is a lot bigger than this pool. For this pool here, Mayor, we can't have 9 months reserve. It has to be a lot more than that, because in the insurance business, you don't know. We could get 3 or 4 firefighters hurt tomorrow at a fire, and we got to come up with that money. I just don't agree of that. This statement that I'm making, Mayor, I would like for us to put it down to discuss it. It's just not going to be something that if we keep dipping into our savings, when something goes wrong and we don't have the money to pay, the EBT board has no authority to raise money. All they can do is with the premiums, this is what the increase is, and this is what everybody should be paying. But they're not paying that. We're dipping into that. Who's going to be left holding the financial bag? Right here. If they're short $3 or $4 million something, we have to come up with that money. And then the question is going to be, why didn't we pass on the cost to everybody for that? And I just want to bring that out. They've done very well. Don't get me wrong about the EBT board. They've done a lot of good things, especially with the wellness programs that they have. That's a big highlight what they're doing that EBT board with the wellness and keeping our employees healthy and giving them a discount, an additional discount on the premiums because they stay healthy. They do a lot of good, but this is an area here where I see, I'm not gonna be around sitting on this council probably, but it's come in front of us. We should address it instead of saying, oh, we'll let another mayor and council address it. Now, I'm finished with that, but I do want to say something at the conclusion about the health insurance premiums, Mayor, in case somebody else has anything to say.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Councilman Barona, are you saying that we should make the decision now to pass that cost now? Or are you suggesting that we discuss this in the near future? Or do you have a solution at this time?
I think my deal is I want to highlight this potential financial crisis to the mayor and council that I see.
But do you offer a suggestion at
Yes,
this?
thank you, Councilman Rojas. I do offer a suggestion, is that we have a study session on this and have the EBT board come over so that we can see what's going on. The EBT board is not it might be on paper independent, but you know, I have concerns because the EBT board is self-appointed. Where I think that the mayor should at least recommend who should be on the EBT board, and they should be approved by us, not self-appointed. The other thing is, we need to study with who's about this. Why aren't we passing these costs on? Well, what happens if a policeman or a fireman or a public works, somebody gets hurt and we have 3 or 4 and there's a catastrophe and it runs into the millions of dollars? We're not going to have the reserve. We are the ones who are responsible for all the finances of the city of Nogales, including the finances of the EBT.
Well, you know, it's something, it's true, both Councilman Rojas and Councilman Arona. You know, this is, it's critical. You look at it with 9 months on it, Jeanette. And let's not just think about it. I think we should start working on this as soon as we're done with this budget, and let's work on it before, you know, time flies. And you know, because we have to take it in a way that our employees are covered, always covered, to the best, and at the same time that, like Councilman Arona says, that we're also covered in covering these bills in case something happens. So let's work on this. Go ahead, Councilman.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. Jeanette, just a question. I mean, do we have an insurance policy that covers us over a certain amount?
Yes, we also have what's called the stop loss. So when claims hit a certain dollar amount, then this insurance steps in and
covers it.
or actually reimburses the trust for those costs.
Okay, so we are basically capped as to what,
Yes.
what the situation
I think
is.
is it 125? 120, 120. And then just also to add to note, if any employee is hurt on the job, then we do have workers' comp insurance as well
Right.
to help for the cost. And then the final note is that there also is a concern when we build up our reserves. We don't want to seem as if we're overcharging and then build up too much of a reserve, because I think IRS could step in and say, you know, why are your rate so high? So there's lots of different things that have to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Also, Janet, what is the state insurance agency, what do they recommend that we have? 6 months, I think is their recommendation, that we have 6 months reserve?
Yes.
So we're actually at 9 months.
Right.
And then we have all those safeguards that are involved in the deal, which we may be paying for them or whatever.
Right.
And then you say you got the state comp and all that, which basically holds our limitations to a certain limit, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Mayor,
Go ahead, Councilman.
the insurance pool here is small. So let's not fool ourselves because it's, there's a stopgap or this and that. We have to make sure that the pool is protected financially. That's what we're responsible for. And that's what I want to look into, because I don't feel comfortable with this. I have an obligation to all of the employees as well as you do to make sure that that's solid and remain solid financially. Remember, our Nogales Unified School District is a big pool. You guys here, we people here, our pool is only 300 employees. And then when we start doing this, and this is not the first time you've done it, the premium increase is higher than what's up there. Eventually, something's got to give. So
Well,
that's
let's
what
do
I'm
that.
saying, that we look at this.
Well, let's do that. There's very little we can do right now in reference to the budget. But let's look into that, and we'll make sure that we have a meeting on this, Jeanette, on study session, and so that we can come up with some type of solution, or you know, probably not gonna be a short-term thing, it's probably a long-term goal that we'll have to look into this, but let's prepare ourselves for this for the future. Okay, continue with your budget.
So just, if there's any more questions?
The only question that I have here, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
The Economic Development Grants Management analysis is frozen. So, we need to do something to help ourselves with our revenue. We just can't say we're gonna hope for our best, because if we're gonna continue to say we're gonna hope for the best for our revenues, all we're going to be doing is telling our employees that they're going to be at the same pay for a long time. Right? So, my contention is that if we're not going to have anybody to help us with economic development, and we've addressed the issue of economic development with the Port Authority, and we've explained to the Port Authority our position right now, would it be possible, Mayor, that sometime on our first meeting in October, that we could visit the issue of the Port Authority and see, because they help us with economic development. What I don't want to see is your seat at the table as a voting member diminished because we're not paying into it anymore. You have a lot to offer. You're the voice for us here, and that's your role, is to be our spokesperson. By charter, that's what you are. And I don't want to lose that, so I would like to have some kind of consideration that we look into this. So after we see how our revenues are for the first 3 months, in the first meeting in October, to go ahead and see if we can come up with some kind of financing. Because if you look at what you had down there, Mrs. Perales, for the overweight fees, if I'm not mistaken, it was $2.5 million. And a lot of our projects that we have here are being accomplished because of that overweight fees that they helped lobby, and you helped lobby when you were mayor in your first term, and the Port Authority has done somewhat. I know the position that we're in financially, but I would like for the Port Authority to understand our position financially, that they should continue to submit to Dr. Felix and Mr. Peralta their monthly statements, and let's look at them in October and see how many of those statements we can pay depending on our finances, and that, to make sure that you can still be our spokesman there, the vice chairman there, and articulate economic development throughout the state for us here in this community, because we're in a unique position. There's no tariffs right now. That doesn't mean in 90 days there isn't going to be tariffs in 90 days. So there we got the tariffs, we got the tomato suspension, and we got a lot of jobs that are included on this. And if we get the tariffs and we get the tomato suspension continuing, our revenues for overweight fees are going to dwindle dramatically. They're going to dwindle. And if they dwindle dramatically, that means there's less projects for us to go ahead and finance. That's less projects for the community. So my suggestion, I don't know if you want it in a motion, Mayor. I don't know if it would be appropriate with this motion that's already on the floor with the budget, but that's up to Mr. Massey. I would like to just make sure that we give an avenue for consideration for the Port Authority sometime during our first meeting in October, after we get a report of the first quarter revenues.
Well, let me explain that. I don't think we should be giving or receiving any statement from the Port Authority or a bill for the next months. Because we're working on a budget here and it's not going to be budgeted for, so there's no reason why we're going to be paying for the monthly, like you said. We have to balance our budget. And that's what we did. When we had the 3 days of budget hearings, unanimously, we did, all of us decide that this is a budget that we had to do, and it worked hard. And I even had to put 3 days of my time and weekends just to get it balanced to a certain point. And the hardest part for me to do was to freeze all these positions. I did not want to freeze $800,000 worth of positions, because as we know, we need the firefighters, we need the police officers, we need all the men and all the men and women that work for the city of Nogales, so that we can provide the services that the people of Nogales want. So that was the reason why we were going to eliminate certain things from the budget. I can understand in the future, yes, we can bring it back, the Port Authority situation. I can understand that. But I do not see us even discussing it right now in a way that the city manager will receive a statement from the Port Authority to later compensate them with a certain amount of money, because it's not in the budget. But yeah, I agree with you. Let's look at it down in the future. And honestly, I think October is too soon, because I like to work with comparison reports. Unless Jeanette can come up with a comparison report that says that there's a big difference between here and October, it shows us that we're going in the right direction. As much as I've talked to Jeanette and I've talked to Mr. Kissinger, certain things, they don't foresee us getting anything better unless something really happens good. And I hope the government does understand that how important it is, the border region, because we're not the only border community that's hurting. Everybody's hurting along the border. It could get worse. So I want to see a budget right now that is balanced enough for us to continue doing our work, Jeanette. And I want to thank you, because you worked very hard on this. Mr. Kissinger, you too. You worked very hard on this. And all of you worked hard on this. But I do understand what you're saying, Councilman Marona. But we'll look at it the way I feel. I don't know how everybody else feels. We'll look at it in the near future. Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Massey? I make a motion to amend the main motion to include the Port Authority funding to be considered on the first meeting of October that we have, and the funding be included but frozen until a decision is made during October.
Councilman Rojas, were you going to say something?
Yes, Mayor, thank you.
Mayor, just a point of order.
Okay.
I
You want to make the motion?
No, I made the motion already.
Okay, go ahead.
I need a second, that's what it is.
Is there
Now,
anybody willing to make a second to that
Mr.
motion?
Maldonado.
So then the motion is second. We can have discussion on that, the motion to amend.
Okay. So we go for a vote.
Well, or allow discussion.
Discussion. Go ahead. Discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, I feel that, and I'm speaking for myself on how I feel, I think that this kind of throws us off balance. And I'll tell you why, because you also have the chamber. And the chamber's not here. They should be here, but at least, unless I'm wrong. But I know that the chamber is going to come to the mayor and council and then say, well, we do things for economic development as well. So I think that if you're going to do that, then you need to do that. But from the moments and times that we were discussing the budget, I thought that we all made an agreement at that time to do what we did. So we got to stick to our guns on this. And I think it's important for me to mention that because that does throw us off. And if you're going to consider one agency, then you need to bring the other agency in because it's not fair. And we're talking about being fair here. And that's the way I see it, and I felt that I had to say that, Mayor.
Okay, I'm gonna call for the question of this.
Mayor, can I
Yes.
just respond to Mr. Rojas?
Yeah, go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you. Mr. Rojas, I'm not going to dispute your statement because I do concur with your statement.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that I will say is that the motion indicates that the funding will just, the allocation will be there, but it's frozen.
Yeah.
We haven't changed anything from
Okay.
what we said we agreed upon. Nothing has changed. Part one. Part two with the Chamber of Commerce, they're big people there over there. If they care about themselves, let them come over here and take care of that. Then I'm prepared to respond on what I think is happening in this. That's a different story there. But the motion has nothing to do to put the funding in, because then I would agree with you. That throws us off. This just says, put it in there, freeze it, and if the revenues are there, we can do it. We will make that decision. If it's not there in 6 months, or if it's not there till next, then we don't do it. But it's just going to be there, so we have that figure in the budget, so we can appropriate the funds if they're there. That's all I'm saying. Because if it's not there, then there's nothing for us to consider. That's all.
I called for the question already, and I'm just gonna say one statement and that's it. We have made a decision, all 7 of us, during the budget process. We have made a decision. All right? I give you the opportunity to do this, and I give you the opportunity to as much as we talk about this budget, the way we're gonna do it, we all agreed to it. 3 days we sat here, almost 8 hours a day, talking about the budget, what we were gonna do, all right? So I figure that if it comes down the line that we want to add something, that's why we can amend budgets. We don't have to do anything about it right now. But since you made a motion, we'll go through the motion. I call for the question, Letty, I start with me.
Mr. Mayor?
Nay.
Mrs. Lopez?
No.
Mr. Rojas?
Nay?
Mr. Maldonado?
All right.
Mr. Barona?
Aye.
Mr. Genesian?
Nay.
Mr. Lopez?
Nay.
I'm sorry?
Nay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jeanette, will you please continue with the budget?
So, finally, I would like to thank Mayor and Council, Dr. Felix, Mr. Kissinger, Mr. Dillon, and all the department heads for their assistance in preparing the budget. This is definitely a team effort, and everyone was allowed their opportunity, had the opportunity to put their input, and that's why we're here today, is because of everyone's hard work. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeanette.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Councilman.
I still want to back up a little on this health insurance here. We have all asked all of the department heads to take a cut to help us balance the budget, whether it be through freezing or financial cuts in the budget. And I think it's only fair that if we're going to ask our employees to take a cut in their budget, that we should consider setting the example of taking a cut ourselves on this. That 8%, the 8% increase in the health insurance for the mayor and council, that means an additional $98,000 for the mayor and council's health insurance. This is what it costs. $98,000. If it was a complete 13%, it would cost $102,000. If we just fund ourselves as members of the council without family coverage, that would save the city $62,000. So I think that we should have the health insurance for the members only, eliminate the family coverage. None of the employees get family coverage. We do get that family coverage. So I make a motion to amend the main motion to instruct the city manager and the finance director to provide the funding for the mayor and council for the member only. The member being defined as the elected official at a savings of $62,000. Let us share in the burden that we've asked all of the employees to share in the burden of balancing the budget. I guess we're not as conservative as I thought.
Motion dies for lack of a second.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mesa. Okay, so now that I call for the question on the budget.
So move, Mayor.
Second.
There's already been a
We
motion.
over,
Yeah,
call for the
but-
question.
Okay.
All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Item number 4, discussion items. Discussion concerning court security. Councilman Varona,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
go ahead.
I was down at the court about a week ago to serve as a witness for an individual down in the court system. And when I was in there, I noticed that the security there is an absolute accident waiting to happen. When you enter the courtroom there, you could, by the time they search you, you're already inside the courtroom. The court proceedings are happening, and if somebody had a gun there, they could take it out and take everybody out. I've never seen somebody getting searched before getting searched after you've entered the courtroom. I mean, that to me just doesn't fall in the protocol of safety. Every place I go, I don't get searched when I'm inside the airplane. I get searched prior to getting inside the airplane. And I think that is not happening right there at the courtroom there, and it's something that it's millions of dollars of a lawsuit waiting to happen. The other thing is, there's a lady, I think she's the stenographer there, and the police department sits the prisoner right next to the stenographer. All the prisoner has to do is turn around, get his chains, and the chains are around the neck of the stenographer. The police officer that was there was 6 to 7 feet away from the prisoner. So there's two things there in the court that need to be resolved. That I would hope, since we have a police department right next to it, I just can't see that these things are happening. That we get searched when we're inside the courtroom during proceedings. And the other thing is that the prisoner is set right next to the individual that has her back to the prisoner and the police officer 6 to 7 feet away. So something needs to be done about the security in that city court before something happens. I mentioned this, that there was a need for having security in that courtroom 2 years ago. And I was brushed aside until somebody did something wrong, and something went wrong. And then they asked to have extra security. So before something happens, Dr. Felix, I hope you would get a report to us on what we need to do to correct that problem before something happens. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Anybody else have any discussion towards security? No?
Who runs does the police department run it, or who?
No, if there was- if they had any security issues, it would be the police department. But as it is right now, we budgeted for police officers to go take care of their issues with the court system. If we're gonna have a police officer there or something, I think that would have been a budgetary issue, unless the chief has somebody that he could send down there during the whole day, which I know you're not gonna have somebody there. So,
Or contractor?
It's a contracted individual down there. We do have a contracted security.
but what, so
So it's
where's the
basically,
security at?
No,
He's
there is
inside.
a
You just
security.
want him to be close to, or be
No,
away
no,
to
no,
him?
no, no.
he's inside, that's
No,
Yeah, I
he-
know, but
the kid who does the security there does an excellent job. But we're the one who are setting him up because we don't have a system where he can check the people outside before you enter the court system. He has no other choice. He has to scan them when they're inside the courtroom. So if I want to go in there and do harm, I'm already inside the courtroom. You're not going to stop me from doing harm. That's what I'm saying.
so that basically it's a security door, you mean? Or
I don't know.
something-
I'm not.
Something that electronic, like they do it at the courthouse, to see if they were.
I don't know.
You're talking about them taking a 10, 15, a prisoner in there,
He comes
that
in a
could,
different way.
that could harm somebody.
Yeah, but that is done intentionally because they sit him right next to the person, the secretary that has the back to them.
Yeah, well, maybe there's some organization inside the court doing this problem. All right, meeting's adjourned.
Liberal.